Now let's get to a ridiculous Jake Tapper, Brad Lander interview that took place that seemingly was just a hit job on Zoran Mamdani.
Lander, thanks for joining us. So Mamdani is already facing a slew of attacks from Republicans, some of them quite bigoted and offensive. Today, Republican Congressman Andy Ogles of Tennessee posted a letter that he sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, in which he writes in part, quote, Zoran Little Mohammed Mamdani is an anti-Semitic, socialist, communist who will destroy the great city of New York. He needs to be deported, which is why I'm calling for him to be
If he was honest, he has this exact same position. I'm sorry. I know Jake Tapper. I know his career. I know his worldview. I've been tracking Jake Tapper for far too long. I know for a fact that he's reading that and he's like, oh, I hate that this congressperson said this, but it's like Jake Tapper also believes that. He is ultra Islamophobic, which is really interesting because I suspect the rest of this interview will show you exactly what I mean.
Meanwhile, you have these other folks who are trying to weaponize anti-Semitism like Donald Trump did in his tweet attacking Zoran, in which, again, he called Chuck Schumer a Palestinian. These are offensive. It's like treating Jews as pawns for political purposes, and it's gross bigotry. And New Yorkers are going to show, just like they did in the primary, that we're better than that.
It would be nice if what happens in the Middle East stays in the Middle East. But obviously, there have been a lot of...
What is Jake Tapper? Oh, my God. First of all, it would be nice if what happens in the Middle East stays in the Middle East is a disgusting way to approach the subject, especially considering that what happens in the Middle East is us. We're happening in the Middle East like all the time. There is never a moment that we have not interfered and destabilized the Middle East. And it's like Israel is a primary example of that, okay? The idea that like what happens in the Middle East stays over there. Come on, don't bring that over here again, which what does he mean? What does he mean by that? Oh my Lord. But the notion that like, oh, it's just stuff happening over there is so stupid. We're doing the stuff happening over there. 70% of all weapons that Israel has used both in defense and offensively against the Palestinian population, the Lebanese population, the Syrian population since October 7 is ours. 70%, 7-0. Without us, there is no genocide of the Palestinians.
What I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
Sure.
And as a Muslim man who grew up post 9/11, I'm all too familiar in the way in which Arabic words can be twisted, can be distorted, can be used to justify any kind of meaning.
Everything he said here is 100% factually accurate, down to the fact that Muslim words, Arabic words, ooh, scary. That's what it is. That's what the this is. That is precisely what the this is. You're scared. You are scared of an Arabic word. It sucks that we can't have a honest conversation about this because so many other people are also afraid, and therefore they will never look within themselves and be like, wait a minute, this is true. This is just like a word that does not carry the weight that I think it carries, so much so that even the Holocaust Museum was using it as the Warsaw Ghetto Intifada in its translations initially, and only changed it earlier last year because they got pressure from Zionist groups. I wouldn't say they're scared. I think they're weaponizing other people's fear of it, which they create and stoke. These people don't care, but it serves their purpose. No, I think actually Jake Tapper unironically is scared of Islamic style words. I think he's just like a total Islamophobe. And therefore, he actually straight up thinks that this is unacceptable. Like, he's a moron. He's a idiot, and he's a racist idiot. I think he genuinely believes when he hears someone say globalize the intifada, no matter who's saying it, you know, Jew, Muslim, American, Arab, doesn't matter. He genuinely thinks this person is a radical that wants to do executions of Jewish people and even Americans who are not Jewish. Like Kirsten Gillibrand's assessment of this, like globalize the intifada means like you want to do jihad against all Jews and you want to kill all Jews. Like that is, I think, a more common meta amongst like dumb white people than you would think. There are, of course, other things that Jake Tapper is not fearful of. Like, I don't think Jake Tapper thinks that Zohran Mamdani is anti-Semitic. Deep down inside, I think if he thinks Zohran Mamdani is anti-Semitic, it's because he's Islamophobic and he thinks, oh, this guy's Muslim. You know how they are. You know, that's maximum. He doesn't think that like Zohran Mamdani is like a Nazi style anti-Semite.
So I've never seen this happen before. The U.S. Holocaust Museum responded to what he said there, posting the statement saying, quote, exploiting the museum and the Warsaw Ghetto uprising.
I hope Brad hit this back and was like, yeah, they changed it. They changed it. This is the unfortunate logical trap that liberal Zionists will fall to, though. I don't think he's going to be able to correct this. If Jake Tapper, on the other hand, had an anti-Zionist Jew on, an anti-Zionist Jew would literally chop this shit up in a million different directions. Number one, are you telling me that the Trump-appointed heads of the U.S. Holocaust Museum had no issue weaponizing my people's history like this? That's number one. Number two, the very same U.S. Holocaust Museum that literally, under the Biden administration in 2024, actually, until they got pressure from Zionist groups, called the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the Warsaw Ghetto Intifada in its Arabic translation, because that is what that word means. Intifada is an uprising. And last but not least, the differences between the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and any sort of intifada, any sort of uprising, or even October 7 is only a major point of difference to you if you think that only Jews are capable of being victims to a genocide and that Palestinians cannot be a victim to a genocide by Israel. If that is your assessment, then you're directly at odds with every single human rights group, every single one. You're directly at odds with the United Nations. You're at odds with most likely the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. You're directly at odds with the International Criminal Court. It is ridiculous. That's it.
To sanitize the phrase globalize the Intifada is outrageous and especially offensive to survivors. Since 1987, Jews have been attacked and murdered under its banner, meaning globalize the Intifada. All leaders must condemn its use and the abuse of history. Does it make you uncomfortable with New York, the epicenter for so much of this pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel protest?
Come on, you're a Jew. Aren't you afraid? Come on, say you're afraid. Say you're afraid of Zohran Mamdani and people like him. Come on, come on. Does it make you scared? Does it make you a little scared? Does it make you a little concerned?
Some of which has been anti-Semitic, some of which has been violent, not most of it, but some of it. Does it make you uncomfortable that he won't condemn that phrase?
Well, first, the phrase globalize the Intifada absolutely makes me uncomfortable. And I mean, I named my son after a leader of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And I've made real clear, you know, people might mean something different, but all I can hear when you say that is open season on Jews after what happened in Boulder and what happened in D.C. I go to a lot of Jewish communal events, and I don't want to keep looking over my shoulder. And I made that real clear. He clarified it's not language that he uses or I think has ever used, you know, and that he doesn't believe in policing other people's speech. That said, the question for me is, will he be a mayor who works hard to keep all Jews, including Jews like me, who do believe in the vision of Israel as a Jewish endowment?
Everybody calm down. This is what I mean. This is why I said there is a limit that Jake Tapper also knows to Brad Lander's opinion on this issue. There's a limit. While he will gladly stand by Zohran Mamdani's side and defend him, there is obviously a personal disagreement here born out of the limitations of being a liberal Zionist. That's what it is. It's the Bernie Sanders conundrum as well. I wonder what Bernie would say if he was ever asked with this question, if he was ever faced with this as well. Real talk, do you think we could convert Brad Lander to anti-Zionism? Dude, come on. He's like, what, 50 years old? Like, I think that time has passed. I'm sorry. While I am capable of changing a lot of younger Gen Z, formerly liberal Zionists or Zionist Jewish people's minds, there is a limitation. It requires a tremendous amount of goodwill and a tremendous amount of charitability that many people have offered to someone like myself. But I, as a Muslim especially, am going to have a much harder time doing this. It's just the unfortunate reality. I'm being super serious about this. By the way, make no mistake, I'm capable of changing the mindset of people on, no matter what age they are, on every other issue. It's just that if you are Jewish and also a Zionist on top of that, and also older, this is an incredibly important part of your identity. This is a major part of your identity, especially for secular Jews. It's like a substitution for community. It's everything. Every aspect of Jewish community is literally built around Israel. Since the inception of Israel, this is how Zionism has worked. It's become a substitute for secular Jews to feel a sense of community, a sense of identity, a sense of purpose. It is a deeply ingrained and very nefarious form of social conditioning. And not only that, but also it's especially difficult for someone like myself to be able to do this, as opposed to someone who is a Jewish anti-Zionist. I hate to admit it, but there is a underlying Islamophobia built into this mentality because it is ultimately Jewish supremacist. Like even in its most liberal framework, there is still a hint of Jewish ethno-religious supremacy that's baked into this ideology, because otherwise you would never be able to justify all of the other things that you turn a blind eye to when you are a liberal Zionist. Because liberal Zionists would be like, oh, the West Bank is really fucked up, but not fucked up enough that I will revolt. You know, Gaza, well, they were asking for it, right? There's different versions of this for every different flavor of liberal Zionism, but like the moment that you look at this and refuse to tackle it head on, the inherently contradictory position, if you are a progressive person and then maintains progressive values while simultaneously you're like, I'm a liberal and a Zionist at the same time. I'm a liberal Zionist without recognizing what Zionism is ideologically. What it is a movement that is identical to previous fascist movements. You will never be able to tackle this issue, and you won't be able to tackle this issue by talking to a million different Muslim people, because it required a tremendous amount of brainwashing for you to arrive at this position that is diametrically opposed to all of the other values that you hold near and dear. Okay?
Democratic state safe. And I am confident that he will. And what I hope we can do, as he and I have tried to demonstrate over the last couple of weeks, is show how we could listen better to each other. He pledged on election night to work harder to understand and listen to people and make clear he will have everyone's back. We're not going to resolve how people feel about the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, but I really do believe that we can show that we'll have a mayor.
Did he roll his eyes when he said, I don't like that people are trying to weaponize anti-Semitism? 717. Okay, here.
To believe that we can show.
Oh, he did. Okay, you weren't wrong. That's crazy. What is this?
And make clear he will have everyone's back. We're not going to resolve how people feel about the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, but I really do believe that we can show.
That's crazy. Oh my God. He did not like that answer. No, Brad, we can change people's minds. I promise. If I do 3 more hours on how anti-Semitic Zoran is, I'm sure people will get the message. Liberal establishment is up to smearing of Zoran Mamdani as an anti-Semite now that he's in the lead. This is a quote from his father, Mahmoud Mamdani's book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, that I share often. And it's just one example that exposes this lie. Before 9/11, I thought that tragedy had the potential to connect us with humanity in ways that prosperity does not. I thought that if prosperity tends to isolate, tragedy must connect. Now I realize that this is not always the case. One unfortunate response to tragedy is a self-righteousness about one's own condition, a seeking proof of one's special place in the world, even in victimhood. I hate to report this to important scholar Mahmoud Mamdani, but tragedy does have a capacity to unite. It's just they united against you and me and the entire Muslim world. That's why everybody always talks about how, oh, we were so united after 9/11. Remember how united we were after 9/11? Yeah, united on killing Muslims, dog. That's what you were united on. I mean, I know he knows that, obviously. I'm joking. One afternoon, I shared these thoughts with a new colleague, the Israeli vice chancellor of the Budapest-based Central European University. When he told me that he was a survivor of Auschwitz, I asked him what lesson he had drawn from this great crime. He explained that, like all victims of Auschwitz, he too had said, never again. In time, though, he had come to realize that this phrase lent itself to 2 markedly different conclusions. One was the never again should this never happen to my people. The other, that it should never again happen to any people. Between these 2 interpretations, I suggest nothing less than our common survival is at stake. Mahmoud Mamdani, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. This is Zoran Mamdani's dad, who wrote the book Good Muslim, Bad Muslim.